Hey there, super friends. This is Joey with Last Point Gaming. Today is Monday, March 26, 2018. Sorry it's been a while. I'm gonna stop promising a schedule because it's gonna be a while until we're on a for realsy schedule and I'm doing things with any amount of reliability. Shit's just kind of a mess right now, but it's alright. Things are getting handled. Anyway, so I haven't done like a weekend gaming report in 2 weeks. And I'm not even really going to do that today. If I record again this week, I'll talk about the two F&Ms and standard showdowns that I haven't talked about yet, maybe. Or I may just stop doing the gaming report unless I went to, a PPTQ or better that weekend. Which probably won't be for a while. So that's my thought there. I am going to talk about the big thing to come out of SCG Cincinnati. And no, I don't mean that Miriam DeCandio and Grace made yet another top 8, but poor Tannen's still working for that trophy. I mean the handshake thing. Alright. So if you're not aware, there were 2 players. I do not remember either of their names. Doesn't matter. 2 players. They're the last match playing because it was a team event. They're the last match still going. And, player A loses. And, I don't know if he was, literally, it was on the board that he was dead, or if he was basically conceding and started scooping up stuff. I don't know. Player B, who's winning this match, extends his hand, takes it back, and then a couple seconds, maybe up to a minute later, extends his hand again, and player A kind of waves it away and says no thanks. And this started quite a hubbub. So there's an article from Epic Stream, which their stuff's hit or miss. But in it, they include, they actually embed a YouTube video from Marshall Sutcliffe. And if you're kind of new here, you may not be aware, I have an insane amount of respect for Marshall Sutcliffe, as he presents himself as part of the commentary team, and not so much as a player. I don't see him play very much, but as a prominent member of the community. And I don't know, he's an adult. Half the time I feel like the rest of us are running around here like kids pretend to be adults. But I have a lot of respect for how he views the community, how he presents himself to the community. Again, I don't know the guy personally, but I do have a lot of respect for him, and he really held to the standards that I've come to expect from him when talking about this issue. So here's the basics of how I feel about it. Usually, when the handshake is offered, it's the person who's offering it is basically conceding the match. It's either they are legitimately dead on board. It is out in the open how they're dead, or they look at their hand, they draw their card for the turn, they look at the board state, they look at life totals, and they go, yeah, this just ain't happening. And so they extend the hand as admitting defeat in a respectful manner. Sometimes we miss it, especially at F&Ms and whatever. Or I would say if, your opponent seems kind of squirrely, maybe it's their first big event, maybe it's the first time they're doing well at a big event, they're in a featured match for the first time ever, they may be a little shaky and be like, oh my god, I'm in the big leagues now and I don't know what I'm doing. And it's, exciting, but it's anxiety inducing. So, as far as, as the person winning the match, should you extend the hand if your opponent does not? I will say that that's a little sketchier. In the Epic Stream article, I don't want to fail to mention, there was also, in addition to Marshall's video, there was a video from the guy who lost this match, player A. Like I said, I don't remember his name. You know how I am with names. Where he talks about why he didn't accept the handshake and everything and his stance on it. And he does say that, like, while he feels in general to have the winner of the match offer the handshake is kind of rude, he does not believe his opponent intended to be so. So, he made the statement that he felt that the gesture in a vacuum is generally considered rude, but he does accept that he does not believe his opponent intended to be, that it wasn't done to be rude. Now, like Marshall in his video, I don't want to focus on specific incidents. It's like, when I was talking about the from the vault Dryad Arbor? Yeah, Dryad Arbor. And it's like, well, and even when I've tried to talk about this with my locals, it's been, well, in this specific case with Gabriel Nassif and I don't remember who his opponent was, because of X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, oh, let's not talk about that specific occurrence. I don't really care about that specific occurrence. I'm sure Nassif cares about that specific occurrence. But I don't, I see it as a problematic thing. So let's talk about it in a broad sense instead of focusing on this microcosm. This this time it happened. Let's analyze and pick apart this. No, because one, you're putting somebody on the spot. Two, there is no audio for whatever was transpiring between them. So you don't know. This guy's opponent may have been being a dickhead to him the whole match. Now, I don't think that's the case. And when the player who did not accept the handshake in his video, when he talked about it, he mentioned, he was like, yeah, okay, I was tilted. Yeah, I was real salty. My team's ability to win this match was hinging on me because their legacy player had lost their match. So, it was a high pressure situation and, I was just kind of pissy. And that happens. It's unfortunate when it happens in a feature match area and you get to be on camera for it. But, I mean, there have definitely been times, as much as I preach good sportsmanship, that I've had one of those moments where I was so wrapped up in, I made this really bad punt. That I'm better than this, and I should have fucking known better, and I should have seen it, and oh my god, why did I do that? Why did I do that? And I get so wrapped up in my own head that, I'm jamming my stuff in my bag, and I get up and I walk away from the table, and I don't even realize that, I didn't follow my usual protocol ending a match with my opponent. I was so irritated with myself. And it's not an excuse. I'm not saying, well, because I wasn't mad at them, that makes it okay. No. I mean, we're all human. We're fallible. We screw up from time to time. It's going to happen. You will have those moments where you're so wrapped up in whatever's going on in your head in relation to why you lost this match that you're not going to realize that you're coming across as salty and kind of an asshole. And you're just going to get up and walk away. And if you ever find this happening, one, use it as a kind of teaching moment. Try to remember it in the future. Two, if you're given the opportunity to later, you come across that person again, if it's at your local F&M, next week they're in, or if you're at a larger tournament, you happen to bump into them again, take the time to be like, oh, hey, look, I just want to let you know, I'm sorry. I didn't observe etiquette and everything, and it wasn't you, it was me. I was, wrapped up inside my own head, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disrespect you. And, try to make it right. And by and large, I feel like most people will accept this apology and, move on. Some people may not accept it, and, that's the breaks, but at least you know that you served your honor code. As far as like, oh, well, I won't offer to shake hands with an opponent who's being an asshole. I will. Unless I have, like, legitimate concern that, you're gonna pull the juvenile bullshit where you try to death grip my hand or twist my arm or some shit like that. Like, that you are going to try to physically cause me pain. Then I don't care, whatever. I'll shake your hand and I'll walk away and I will likely never think of you again. Unless you really piss me off. Which usually involves implying an accusation of cheating without coming out and saying it. Yeah, I'm still pretty salty about that one. But in general, I don't think there's any harm in it. But apparently this is in fact a cultural thing, though. Tom Ross tweeted out, and he cheated at Twitter too. It's like a screenshot of a notepad file where he went on about how, there's this one GP, he faced this Japanese player, he wins, he beats him 2-0, he extends his hand, the player won't shake his hand, and, walks away. At first he's kind of like, weird, rude, whatever, and he goes about his life. Well, then he's starting to watch more coverage, and he's watching Japanese coverage, and he realizes these guys don't shake each other's hands. That's not how they end a match. They also saw that between each game, each player will fan their sideboard out on the table so their opponent can see and count that there's 15 cards. Now, I'm assuming this is back when your sideboard had to be exactly 15 cards, and when you made exchanges, it had to be 1-for-1. If you started with a 60-card main and a 15-card sideboard every game, there had to be 15 cards set aside and 60 that were in the deck. Now, of course, that's changed. You can have a 0 to 15-card sideboard. In fact, the Pirates deck only has a 13-card sideboard. And if you have a match where you're like, man, I want all 60 of my main deck cards and all 15 of my sideboard cards, you can just shuffle up all 75 and present. So I'm assuming when, the fanning the sideboard out and everything was under the old rules where it mattered. So he said, after watching a bunch of this, he finds himself playing against the same Japanese player at another event, like, a year later or whatever. So before game 2, he lays out his sideboard, and, the guy kind of smiles and seems to feel ingratiated that somebody, that an American player has learned the customs. And then at the end of the match, and Tom Ross lost this time, he did like the nod, head bow, and, good game and whatever. And he said that it really seemed to make his opponent feel better that somebody had learned the Japanese customs, that were, was treating him how he's accustomed to being treated when playing in his home country. And with this being a multinational game, I think it's important to keep that in mind, that there are cultural things. Now, I'm American. I don't really leave the U.S., especially since we now require passports to go to Canada. So, I don't know any other customs, and anybody that wants to share with me, either, like, if you're German or Brazilian, I seem to have a lot of Brazilian listeners, and want to share with me, where your customs deviate from the typical American, handshake at the beginning of the match, handshake at the end of the match. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you, or if you know somebody, or if you watch a lot of international coverage and say, yeah, when I watch GP in France, this is what they do, or whatever. Because, again, most of the coverage I consume is SCG, and that's all domestic here in the US. Sorry, Watsy. Even as much as I respect and enjoy Marshall Sutcliffe, the rest of their commentary team I have a difficult time listening to. Though I will say, even Marshall, when he's doing commentary, they seem to have a strategic plan with their commentary that just doesn't work for the way I consume content. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying that SCG's... What are you doing? Whatever. That SCG's commentary guys are just so much more better and so much more polished. Yeah, more better. That was great. They're just so much better at what they do and everything. No, they take different approaches to the commentary, or at least it seems that way to me. And the way SCG approaches the commentary more facilitates my multitask content consumption style. Anyway, so I do recommend, at least for, players here in the States, because it is considered polite, that, when you're conceding a match, when you're saying, okay, you got this one, reach the hand out, shake hands, even if you feel like their deck is some cheese-eating, bullshit, or that, they got lucky and top decked, or that you got unlucky and flooded, or whatever, try to observe good sportsmanship, because it's really a reflection on your character, not theirs. As far as if you win a match and your opponent doesn't offer their hand, usually I would, but after listening to Marshall talk about it, I have to say I find his opinion of the whole thing to be very level-headed and very logical. That, as it does usually fall on the person conceding, admitting defeat. That's part of what this, well, alright, he doesn't put that. It's the respectfully ending a match, whatever, but you're admitting defeat in a grown-up manner. You're being mature about it and, giving your opponent the respect of, yeah, hey, it was good games and you pulled it out. If you win and your opponent doesn't offer the handshake, there could be many reasons for this. One being that cultural difference. I would say germaphobe, but honestly, I mean, sure, you could be a germaphobe, but man, I don't know. Part of me wants to say, I can't see you being able to function inside a tournament, but I have massive social anxiety and I can function in one. It's rough and it takes some dedication, but car pieces. But I can do it. So I don't know, maybe with enough dedication and checks and balances and whatever, even somebody who has a germaphobe situation can kind of get through it. But yeah, there could be many reasons, and even if your opponent's just having themselves a salty moment and, internally throwing themselves a little pity party. And I don't say that diminutively. I'm not saying, yeah, crybaby little bitches. No, we all do it from time to time. Like I said, I know there have been times where, I've walked away from a match, and it was only when I got a couple steps away that I'm like, yeah, hey, I'm sorry. I'm real wrapped up in what I did wrong there. It's not your fault, and I shouldn't treat you that way. So, here's your handshake. Sorry, good games. Thanks for putting up with my crap. It does happen to us all. Just nobody's perfect. So I can say that I really agree with what Marshall had to say about, if that's the case, if your opponent has lost and they don't offer the handshake, it's probably better just to let it alone. And that I still don't think it's necessarily rude to offer if you've won the match and your opponent hasn't offered a handshake. personally, my view of the situation, I've never seen that as rude, but I can understand what he's saying. So yeah, just try to be a good sport. I don't think there should be, a warning issued for USC for offering a handshake when you won or not offering a handshake when you lost. I think it's one of those things that it's a pleasantry. And if you happen to be on a feature match like this poor guy was, because like I said, he actually did his piece on it and talked about, how he felt about the whole thing and pretty much openly admitted that he was just being salty. Like, he had all this going on in his head, and then, when the handshake's offered from the winner, it just feels like an insult to injury kind of thing. Where was I going with that? Oh, man, my head hurts. This Monday, seriously just beat me up in a dark alley and stole my weekend. I don't know where this day came from. I think observing what's generally considered good sportsmanship is good. I don't do it so people will like me. I do it because it's what I feel is the appropriate thing to do. I really don't care who likes me and who doesn't anymore. I mean, my husband likes me, and that's cool. And my kids, it's hit or miss. Depends on if we're doing something fun or if I'm making them clean their rooms. And that's really all I need, I like that I have this acceptance at the shop, but at the same time, if somebody there's going to decide that they just straight up don't like me, whatever. Anyway, and it does suck when you happen to get caught in one of these bad moments and you're on camera, because the internet will rip into you. That's just the nature of the internet. Like, I just basically all weekend saw the debate about handshakes at the end of matches all over Twitter. Had no clue what it was about until reading this article today. Because I didn't catch much of the Cincinnati coverage. I did catch part of the quarterfinals, where unfortunately the team that I was totally all about getting there, they didn't make it through. Ross and Brendan struggled a bit. Ross said he made some poor sideboarding choices. Brendan said he didn't play game one to the optimal. It's good to find places where you can improve. And I feel like these players are seasoned enough that they're not going to, beat themselves up over whatever. They're simply stating, I could have done things better. It's always good to find things within your control, ways to up your skill level, if it's important to you. Places where you could have played better, where you maybe made a bad call and, kind of should have been able to identify it. But beating yourself over losses, it's a game, I don't understand feeling that serious about it. And at one time I would have made exceptions for, when you play professionally and that's, where most of your income come from and all that, then that makes sense. Except, all the pro players I've seen, they, I wouldn't say that they don't take the game seriously when they're actively playing. They focus and they play to their best ability and everything. But I've never seen one snap from a loss. They just, I don't know. They seem to take losses very well. I don't know. And they seem to, whatever is going on in their head, because I'm sure they have unkind thoughts about their opponents. Everybody does. Like, let's just admit it, that the vast majority of us are assholes in our heads. I know I am. I freely admit it. But the persona that they present to other players at tournaments just always seems so positive and very nice. At least the pros I've kept track of. I don't know, I do hear from time to time, that some of them aren't so on the up and up with that. But, when you can watch Pascal Maynard, I look at his name and I think it should be said Maynard, but hearing the commentary team say it, they say Menard. But watching Pascal lose so incredibly gracefully to Seth Manfield in the finals of the Pro Tour. Like, Seth's looking at his board trying to figure out what he's missing. What's going to stop him from winning this? Because it looks like he's got it, so he's got to triple check the math to make sure. And I mean, I get it. This is an incredibly important moment that if you forget that, they got this creature sitting over here that I didn't account for in this combat or whatever, it's going to cost you. But as he's diligently staring down this board trying to figure out basically how he loses, that's what it looked like. He's like, I think I got this, but let me see if I can find the way I don't got it. And Pascal reaches across the table and pats him on the shoulder and gives him a hug and everything. I mean, this is the finals of the Pro Tour. This is for big money. It's for, big bragging rights, essentially. It's, the second highest echelon of competition, right? The only thing above it is the World Championship. If he can lose that match gracefully like that, and just be so nice about it, and happy for Seth. I can lose at table 100 in round 7 of an SCG Open and not be shitty about it. I can lose a match at F&M. I can lose a match at a PPTQ. Okay, I must have pulled up next to somebody running a hose or something, because I thought something in my car popped. I don't know. Oh, this day. Anyway, yeah, so be awesome to each other. Is that something like that? It's a Bill and Ted thing. Hey, you remember Bill and Ted? Maybe not. I'm old. That's what I got to say about all that. Hopefully I'll do some more recording this week. I'm not making any promises, though. Like I said, shit's kind of a wreck right now. Definitely won't be on Wednesday because I have a dental procedure being done. So, nobody wants to listen to the slurring and the mumbly voice from having gauze in my mouth and all that kind of crap. But anyway, I'm home now. As always, if you made it this far with me, thank you very much for listening, and hopefully I'll talk to y'all again this week.